Welcome to the Saving History podcast, the sanctuary for castle devotees and medieval history enthusiasts. Prepare to embark on a thrilling voyage through time as we unveil enthralling history and legend. From ancient folklore to cutting-edge restoration, we've got it all covered. So grab your headphones and let's dive right in.
In the rugged heart of Scotland, where the mists rise from ancient glens and the wind carries echoes of forgotten battles, the legend of Robert the Bruce begins. Born in a land wrought by conflict and conquest, where the wild landscape holds as many stories as it does secrets, Robert emerged as a beacon of hope in Scotland's darkest hours. His tale is one of valour, betrayal, perseverance, and ultimately triumph. A narrative so potent it has been woven into the very fabric of Scottish identity. The year was 1274, and Europe was a tapestry of warring factions, with kings and chieftains vying for power over fractured realms. Scotland, a nation of fierce independence and even fiercer warriors, was no exception. It was into this turbulent world that Robert the Bruce was born, a son to the noble Bruce family, descended from Scottish kings and Norman conquerors alike. His grandfather had claimed the Scottish throne, but it was a claim left unfulfilled, creating a legacy of ambition and aspiration that would define Robert's destiny. From a young age, Robert was steeped in the lore and lessons of governance and warfare, educated not just in the art of combat, but in the subtleties of leadership and the complexities of feudal loyalty. His father, a powerful lord with lands on both sides of the Anglo-Scottish border, was his mentor in these early years, teaching him to navigate the intricate and often deadly intricacies of medieval politics. As Robert grew, so too did his understanding of his birthright and the weight of his heritage. The death of Alexander III of Scotland had plunged the nation into a succession crisis that would come to be known as the Great Cause, a dispute that attracted the eyes and greed of the English crown. When Edward I of England intervened, not as a mediator but as a conqueror, Scotland's sovereignty was imperilled. It was against this backdrop of subjugation and strife that Robert's destiny would unfold. In his early years, Robert's loyalties were tested as the Scottish nobility split between supporters of John Balliol and those who favoured the English king. Initially, Robert himself swore allegiance to Edward I, a decision driven more by political expediency than by fealty. However, the young Bruce soon grew disillusioned with the harsh realities of English domination, the brutal execution of William Wallace, a hero of the Scottish resistance whose martyrdom ignited a fire of nationalism profoundly impacted Robert. Wallace's unyielding dedication to freedom resonated with him, stirring a deep and irrevocable change. The turning point came in 1306 at the Greyfriars Church in Dumfries. In a moment fraught with tension and shrouded in a fog of conspiracy, Robert encountered John Comyn, a fellow noble and his chief rival for the throne. The details of what transpired are cloaked in mystery and rumour, but the encounter ended with Comyn's death, by Robert's hand or by that of his followers. This act of defiance against both a rival and the established order was the spark that ignited Robert's rebellion. In its aftermath, he was excommunicated by the Church, making him an outlaw in the eyes of both England and Rome. Undeterred, Robert seized the moment to claim his crown. He was inaugurated as King of Scots of Scone on a cold March day with a hurried coronation, forgoing the traditional stone of destiny which the English had taken. This act was both a statement of intent and a desperate gamble, proclaiming not just his claim to the throne, but his commitment to the cause of Scottish independence. Thus began the hard years of struggle, as Robert fought not only to solidify his control over Scotland, but also to win the recognition and respect of his own chieftains and the broader populace. His early efforts were marked by devastating losses and periods of bleak despair, including a harrowing escape to the Western Isles, where he was given shelter by loyal supporters under the constant threat of capture. It was during these dark times, so the stories tell, that Robert took refuge in a small cave, where he observed a spider attempting to weave its web. Time and again the spider would fall, only to climb once more to try again. Inspired by this simple act of perseverance, Robert embraced the spider's tenacity as his own. This legend, perhaps apocryphal but no less powerful, has come to symbolize Robert's indomitable spirit, a spirit that would lead him back to the mainland to rally his forces and continue the fight for freedom. This introduction to Robert the Bruce's life sets the stage for a tale not just of a man, but of a nation's struggle for identity and sovereignty, a tale that continues to inspire and resonate through the centuries, reminding us of the enduring human quest for liberty and justice. In the shadowed halls of Scottish nobility, where the heavy air is filled with whispers of power and the scent of intrigue, the story of Robert the Bruce's ascent begins. His journey to kingship was not paved with mere ambition, but forged through the fiery crucible of betrayal, familial duty, and the unyielding desire for a free Scotland. His path was as rugged and fraught with danger as the Scottish Highlands themselves. Robert was born into the aristocratic Bruce family, a lineage of Norman descent that had entrenched itself deeply within the Scottish nobility. His grandfather, Robert de Bruce, was one of the claimants to the Scottish throne during the Great Cause, a complex legal and military dispute that followed the death of King Alexander. The lack of a clear heir had plunged Scotland into a period of uncertainty and vulnerability, making the throne a prize for which many nobles contended. The early death of Alexander's granddaughter, Margaret, the Maid of Norway, left a power vacuum that would draw Edward I of England into Scottish affairs. Edward, known for his formidable military prowess and nicknamed Longshanks for his height and leg length, saw an opportunity not merely to mediate but to dominate. The Scottish nobles, including the young Robert, were compelled to recognize Edward's overlordship if they had any hopes of maintaining their lands and titles under his arbitration. Despite his initial allegiance to Edward, Robert's heart beat with the rhythm of Scottish independence, a pulse that grew stronger with each passing injustice inflicted by the English crown. The early 1290s were a time of political manoeuvring, with Robert learning the harsh lessons of realpolitik firsthand. His family's claim to the throne was substantial but complicated by the ambitions of the rival house of Balliol and the manipulations of Edward I. Robert's father, also named Robert, had a precarious hold on his lands and titles, balancing loyalty to Edward with a deep-seated belief in Scotland's sovereignty. From him, young Bruce inherited not only a claim to the Scottish crown, but a dual legacy of pragmatism and idealism. This inheritance was a mantle he wore uneasily at first, as he grappled with the conflicting demands of honour and survival. In 1296, Edward I invaded Scotland, a brutal assertion of his supposed rights as overlord. The sacking of Berwick, where Scottish men, women, and children were massacred, marked a turning point for Robert. Witnessing such horrors, his allegiance began to shift. The following years would see him oscillating between supporting the English and fighting for Scottish independence, a reflection of the complex and dangerous Game of Thrones in which he was a reluctant player. The execution of William Wallace in 1305 was another pivotal moment for Robert. Wallace, a leader of the Scottish resistance whose exploits had become legendary, was captured and executed by the English, his death intended as a warning to other rebels. Instead, it served as a catalyst for Robert, who saw in Wallace's martyrdom the embodiment of the Scottish spirit, unbowed and indomitable. It was then that Robert's commitment to Scotland's independence crystallized into a resolve that would define the rest of his life. In February 1306, the smouldering tensions between Robert and John Comyn, a powerful Scottish noble and his chief rival, came to a head. They met at the Greyfriars Church in Dumfries, under a guise of diplomacy. The meeting, fraught with undercurrents of rivalry and mistrust, ended in violence. Comyn was killed, an act that was both a political assassination and a declaration of war. Robert, knowing well that there was no turning back, stepped decisively onto the path of kingship. Within weeks of Comyn's death, Robert was crowned King of Scots at Scone Abbey. His coronation was a profound statement of intent. Robert would lead Scotland not as a vassal of England, but as a sovereign ruler of an independent nation. Thus began Robert the Bruce's reign, under the most perilous of auspices. With the English crown against him and many Scottish nobles wavering in their support, his claim to the throne was as precarious as it was bold. Yet it was this audacious claim, made in the shadow of adversity, that would eventually rally a nation to his side and forge a legacy that centuries could not dim. In the aftermath of his coronation, Robert the Bruce faced not only the might of an incensed English kingdom, but also the treachery and scepticism of his own people. His early reign was marred by catastrophic defeats that would have spelled the end for a lesser man. However, Robert's journey through despair to determination was marked by an encounter that would immortalize him in the annals of inspirational lore. Following his audacious claim to the throne in 1306, Robert faced immediate and formidable challenges. His forces were met by the English at Methven, a confrontation that proved disastrous. Robert, inexperienced in the grim artifices of war against an enemy like Edward of England, suffered a humiliating defeat. The battle scattered his supporters and forced him into hiding, marking the beginning of a period that would test him to his very core. The Scottish Highlands, with their rugged mountains and deep mist-veiled glens, became Robert's refuge. Yet this sanctuary was also a prison of isolation and hardship. Driven from his home, hunted like a common outlaw, Robert experienced the acute sting of betrayal as former allies turned against him, either out of fear or in hopes of favour from the English crown. The harsh reality of his situation was compounded by the capture and tragic fate of his family, with his wife, Elizabeth de Burgh, taken prisoner by the English and held in solitary confinement. Amid this dire adversity, a legend found its roots, a legend that would capture the essence of Robert's indomitable spirit. It is said that during these dark times, while sheltering in a small, forlorn cave on Rathlin Island, off the coast of Ireland, Robert observed a tiny spider attempting to weave its web. Time and again the spider would climb to the roof of the cave, only to fall back down, its efforts thwarted by the elements and its own limitations. Yet the spider persevered. Each fall was met not with surrender, but with renewed resolve. With each attempt, the spider climbed again, spinning with delicate determination until, at last, it succeeded in anchoring its silken thread. His simple act of persistence, observed during a moment of profound personal despair, struck a chord within Rob. If such a small creature could overcome its challenges through sheer will, then so could he, a king fighting for his nation's freedom. Emboldened by this epiphany, Robert emerged from his self-imposed exile with a new philosophy of warfare. He adapted to guerrilla tactics, recognizing that he could not meet the English in open battle and expect victory. Instead, he focused on swift, unexpected strikes, raiding garrisons, ambushing patrols, and reclaiming his territories castle by castle. The transformation in Robert's strategy began to bear fruit. His new approach disoriented the English forces and began to inspire confidence among his disheartened followers. Slowly support for his cause grew once more as tales of his cunning and resilience spread across Scotland. These stories not only rallied troops to his banner, but also reignited a sense of national pride and hope among the Scots. By 1309, Robert had regained control of the heartland of Scotland. His leadership style evolved, marked by strategic patience and a deep understanding of the landscape and its people. These years of struggle and resurgence were not just a military campaign. They were a crucible that forged a king truly worthy of Scotland's throne, a king whose spirit was as unbreakable as the Highlands themselves. This period of exile, and the metaphor of the spider weaving its web, became emblematic of Robert's entire campaign for Scottish independence. It highlighted his capacity for reflection, adaptation, and perseverance against seemingly insurmountable odds. More than just a tactical victory, Robert's resurgence was a moral triumph, a testament to the power of resilience and the enduring human spirit. In the early dawn of June 23rd, 1314, the air over the Scottish lowlands was thick with tension. The Battle of Bannockburn, a confrontation destined to become a cornerstone of Scottish national identity, loomed under Robert the Bruce's command, a determined yet vastly outnumbered band of Scots, prepared to face the might of an English army led by King Edward II. This battle was not merely a clash of arms, but a formidable test of wills, a fight for the very soul of Scotland. Robert the Bruce, now seasoned by years of guerrilla warfare, understood that the traditional battle strategies would not suffice against the superior numbers and resources of the English. His approach to the impending conflict showcased a brilliant synthesis of tactical innovation and intimate knowledge of the terrain. The stage was set at Bannockburn near Stirling Castle, a strategic point essential to controlling the heart of Scotland. The English, confident in their strength and numbers, approached with an army that was heavily armoured and included many noble knights eager for combat and glory. In contrast, Robert's forces were lighter, more agile, and profoundly motivated by the cause of freedom. Understanding the limitations and strengths of his men, Robert crafted a strategy centred around the natural features of the landscape. A small river, the Bannockburn, would play a pivotal role in his defensive setup. Robert instructed his soldiers to dig pits and cover them with branches and grasses, creating hidden traps for the English cavalry. These pots, as they were called, would disrupt the charge of the heavy horsemen, breaking their line and sowing chaos. Alongside this, he positioned his spearmen in tight formations known as schiltrons, which were formidable against cavalry charges, their spears angled outward like the bristles of a hedgehog. As the battle commenced on that first day, the English cavalry advanced, their confidence turning to confusion as they encountered the cleverly concealed pits. Many a horse and rider fell, breaking the momentum of the charge and throwing Edward's forces into disarray. The Scots, seeing their foes falter, pressed this advantage with ferocious intensity. The battle raged into the second day, June 24, when the main body of the English army crossed the narrow bridge over the Bannockburn to engage the Scots. Robert, observing the slow and disorganized movement of English troops, seized the moment for a decisive action. With a calculated risk, he led a charge that was as audacious as it was unexpected, targeting the now vulnerable flanks of the English forces. Under Robert's direct command, the Scottish warriors fought with a fierce determination that belied their numbers. The English knights, encumbered by their heavy armour and the marshy ground, struggled to maintain cohesion. As Scottish morale surged, English resolve crumbled, and what began as a tactical engagement turned into a rout. King Edward II, witnessing the collapse of his army's morale, was compelled to flee the field, a move that not only secured the battle for the Scots, but also marked a significant turning point in the wars of Scottish independence. The victory at Bannockburn was not merely military, it was symbolic, a clear and undeniable declaration of Scotland's resilience and right to self-determination. Robert the Bruce emerged from Bannockburn a hero, not just of Scotland, but of history itself. His leadership and tactical genius during the battle cemented his status as one of the great leaders of his age. But beyond the immediate military triumph, Bannockburn stirred a profound sense of national identity and pride among the Scots, a sentiment that would resonate through the ages. In the aftermath, the Scottish victory at Bannockburn became a beacon of hope and a symbol of resistance against oppression. It showcased the possibility of victory against overwhelming odds and affirmed the effectiveness of unconventional warfare strategies tailored to specific situations and environments. Robert's triumph at Bannockburn thus resonated far beyond the battlefield. It was a victory for Scottish independence, a crucial step towards the eventual recognition of Scotland as a separate and sovereign kingdom. For Robert, it was a personal vindication, a moment that justified all his sacrifices and solidified his legacy as a king and a warrior. Following the resounding triumph at Bannockburn, Robert the Bruce stood not only as a military victor, but also as the uncontested sovereign of Scotland. His coronation at Scone, once mired in controversy and desperation, was now validated by undeniable right of conquest. However, the true measure of his kingship would be tested not on the battlefield, but in the governance of a nation, scarred by war and fragmented by feudal loyalties. Robert's vision for Scotland was transformative, extending beyond mere resistance against English domination to the forging of a robust, centralised Scottish state. His reign was marked by a deep commitment to re-establishing the rule of law and revitalising the Scottish Parliament. These efforts were aimed at stabilising and nurturing a realm that had been torn asunder by incessant conflict and political intrigue. As king, Robert faced the monumental task of restructuring Scottish society. The war had decimated the nobility, leaving vast tracts of land without lords and a peasant population burdened by uncertainty. Robert seized this opportunity to reward loyalty and consolidate power by redistributing lands confiscated from those who had opposed him during the struggle for independence. This not only secured the allegiance of his supporters, but also facilitated the emergence of a new class of nobility devoted to the Bruce cause and, more significantly, to the concept of a unified Scotland. Central to Robert's domestic policy was the revival and enforcement of laws that had fallen into abeyance during the years of upheaval. He focused on strengthening the legal framework, which was crucial for maintaining public order and justice. His reign saw the codification of Scottish laws and the establishment of a system where disputes could be settled by an impartial judiciary rather than by the sword. This legal renaissance was pivotal in cultivating a sense of national identity and civic responsibility among the Scots. In 1318, Robert convened a parliament at Scone, which was attended by representatives from across the realm. This assembly was not merely ceremonial, but a genuine forum for governance. It addressed the pressing needs of the kingdom, including the defence of the realm, the administration of justice, and economic recovery. One of the landmark legislations enacted under Robert's guidance was the reconfirmation of the rights and privileges of the Church, which had been a staunch ally in his quest for the throne. Additionally, he implemented measures to encourage trade and crafts, understanding that a thriving economy was essential for the sustenance of his independent kingdom. Moreover, Robert the Bruce was a patron of the arts and culture, recognizing their role in fostering a cohesive national identity. Under his reign, Gaelic and Scots culture flourished, with the bardic traditions receiving royal patronage, which in turn enriched the Scottish cultural landscape. Robert's foreign policy was equally astute. The Declaration of Arbroath in 1320, a letter submitted to Pope John XXII, was a bold statement of Scottish sovereignty and an appeal for international recognition of his kingdom's independence. Crafted by his close advisers and signed by the Scottish nobility, the Declaration eloquently asserted Scotland's right to self-rule and defended Robert's kingship on the basis of his success in preserving Scotland's freedom from English tyranny. This document was not only a diplomatic plea, but also a profound assertion of the principles that defined Robert's reign: liberty, justice, and the welfare of the Scottish people. The Pope's eventual recognition of Robert as the rightful King of Scots in 1324 was a significant diplomatic victory, legitimizing his rule in the eyes of the international community and further solidifying the foundations of the nascent Scottish state. Robert the Bruce's reign thus marked a golden age of reform and reconstruction. His leadership transformed Scotland from a land ravaged by war into a sovereign, stable, and self-sustaining kingdom. As the mist cleared from the fields of Bannockburn, Robert the Bruce stood as a beacon of Scottish resilience and independence. Yet the true complexity of his kingship lay not only in his military and administrative prowess, but also in his shrewd diplomatic strategies and the intricate web of family ties that both supported and complicated his reign. Robert's lineage was a crucial aspect of his rule. Born into the noble Bruce family, his claim to the Scottish throne was intertwined with the bloodlines of Scotland's most powerful clans. Understanding the importance of dynastic alliances, Robert strategically arranged marriages that would solidify his position and extend his influence. His own marriage to Elizabeth de Burgh in 1302 was a testament to this approach. Elizabeth, daughter of one of the most influential earls in the English kingdom, brought considerable dowry and prestige to Robert's side, further legitimizing his claim to the throne. The couple's union was not merely a political alliance, but also a partnership characterized by mutual respect and affection. Elizabeth's capture by the English in 1306 and her subsequent imprisonment became a rallying cry that not only humanized Robert's struggle for independence, but also highlighted the personal sacrifices inherent in their quest. Alas, in 1314, following the Treaty of Edinburgh, Northampton was a poignant moment for the Bruce family, reuniting Robert with a wife who had endured much for their shared cause. Beyond his immediate family, Robert understood the importance of securing his lineage and strengthening his legacy. His children, including his son and successor David II, were married into families across Europe, weaving a network of alliances that bolstered Scotland's position on the international stage. These marriages were not just bonds of peace, but also powerful deterrents against English attempts to reclaim influence over Scotland. Diplomatically, Robert's tenure was marked by a keen understanding of the balance of power in Europe. His efforts to gain recognition for his kingship and Scotland's sovereignty were tireless and often took place in shadowy corridors of power far from the battlefield. The Declaration of Arbroath, as much a plea for papal support as it was a statement of Scottish independence, was a masterstroke in medieval diplomacy. Crafted in 1320, this letter to Pope John XXII was a bold assertion of Scotland's national identity and a formal request for the Church's blessing of Robert's reign. The Pope's eventual acknowledgment in 1324 of Robert as the rightful King of Scots was a significant victory, marking Scotland's emergence from the shadow of English domination as a recognized sovereign entity. This papal recognition was not just a diplomatic triumph, but also a personal vindication for Robert, who had fought tirelessly to restore and legitimize his nation's status on the European stage. Robert also extended his diplomatic efforts to forge links with Norway and France, renewing old alliances and establishing new ones. His marriage of his sister to the Norwegian king and his renewal of the old alliance with France were moves designed to encircle England with a network of friendly states, thereby securing Scotland's borders and commerce. These alliances were crucial, as they provided Scotland not only with potential military support, but also economic benefits. Trade with Europe flourished under Robert's rule, bringing wealth to Scotland that helped rebuild the nation after years of war. The import of luxury goods and export of Scottish wool and timber were significant economic drivers, showcasing Robert's understanding of the broader economic landscape and its importance to national stability. In these maneuvers, marital, diplomatic, and economic, Robert demonstrated a profound comprehension of the complex interplay between personal rule and international politics. His kingship was thus not a solitary role, but a hub in a vast network of relationships that spanned continents. As his reign progressed, Robert the Bruce emerged not only as a national hero, but also as a savvy statesman whose policies shaped the medieval political landscape of Europe. Through these myriad ties and maneuvers, Robert the Bruce wove a tapestry of governance that was as durable as it was delicate, ensuring that his vision for Scotland would endure across generations. As the sun dipped below the horizon of the Scottish landscape, casting long shadows over the rolling hills and ancient castles, Robert the Bruce entered the twilight of his life. His reign, marked by relentless warfare and shrewd diplomacy, had secured Scotland's independence and his place as a national hero. Yet the burdens of kingship and the scars of battle wore heavily on him, signalling that his time to rest was drawing near. In the years following the Treaty of Edinburgh, Northampton in 1328, which recognised Scotland's independence and Robert's right to the throne, his health began to decline. The rigours of his earlier life, years of combat, periods of hunger and hardship in the wilderness, and the constant pressures of leadership, had taken their toll. Chronic illness plagued his final years, a testament to the sacrifices he had made for Scotland's sovereignty. Despite his physical decline, Robert's mind remained sharp, and his dedication to Scotland's future unwavering. He was acutely aware of the importance of a stable succession to prevent the kind of dynastic conflict that had earlier thrown Scotland into chaos. His son, David II, was still a child, and the potential for power struggles after his death was a significant concern. To mitigate this risk, Robert took steps to ensure loyalty to his heir, arranging marriages and alliances that would secure his family's position and strengthen the young nation. Robert's concern for his legacy extended beyond mere politics. He was a patron of the arts and a devout Christian, and his end of life decisions reflected these values. One of his most personal projects was the establishment of a series of monasteries and churches, intended as places of worship and as sanctuaries for the learning and culture that he had always championed. These foundations also served as symbols of his gratitude toward the Church, which had supported his reign in its darkest hours. Perhaps the most poignant aspect of Robert's later years was his preparation for his own death. He was deeply spiritual and, according to legend, expressed a wish for his heart to be taken on a crusade to the Holy Land. This request was both a demonstration of his piety and a metaphor for his undying spirit of adventure and struggle against oppression. When Robert the Bruce died on June 7, 1329, the nation mourned deeply. He was buried in Dunfermline Abbey, in a tomb befitting a king who had fought so tirelessly for his country's independence. However, in accordance with his wishes, his heart was removed and entrusted to Sir James Douglas. Douglas, one of his most loyal knights, was to carry it to Jerusalem, symbolizing Robert's unfulfilled desire to participate in a crusade. Tragically, Douglas was killed fighting the Moors in Spain, and the heart, encased in a silver casket, was returned to Scotland. Robert the Bruce's heart was eventually buried in Melrose Abbey, and this resting place became a site of pilgrimage, a symbol of the king's enduring spirit and his profound connection to his people and their shared faith. The legacy of Robert the Bruce is complex and layered, much like the man himself. He was a warrior and a statesman, a king who could be ruthless in battle yet visionary in peace. His life had been a series of contradictions, noble yet outlawed, crowned yet excommunicated, victorious yet often in despair. Yet, through these contradictions, he emerged as the embodiment of Scotland's struggle for self-determination. Historians and poets have painted Robert the Bruce as a figure of national identity, blending fact with folklore to create a portrait of a man whose ambition for his country knew no bounds. His story has been immortalized in Scottish culture, celebrated in annual commemorations, and his image adorns countless monuments across the nation. In the modern era, Robert the Bruce remains a towering figure, not only in Scottish history but also in the broader narrative of medieval Europe. His leadership style, his commitment to national sovereignty, and his personal sacrifices have become benchmarks against which other leaders are often measured. His story resonates not just as a tale of past glories, but as a perennial reminder of the power of determination and the enduring human spirit. Centuries have passed since the death of Robert the Bruce, yet his legacy remains as potent and palpable as the stone walls of the castles that still stand guard over the Scottish landscape. In the annals of history, his reign is marked as a turning point, a moment when the destiny of a nation was irrevocably altered. Today, Robert the Bruce is not just a figure of the past. He is a symbol of resilience and national identity, his story echoing through the ages and resonating with new generations. In the modern era, the narrative of Robert the Bruce has been revisited and reinterpreted across various mediums, from scholarly texts to popular culture. Each portrayal offers a glimpse into the enduring fascination with his character and leadership. In Scotland, he is celebrated as a national hero, a personification of the struggle for independence and self-determination. His story is taught in schools, featured in films and literature, and commemorated in statues and memorials. Each retelling serves to reinforce his mythic status, blending historical fact with the embellishments that are typical of legendary figures. The Battle of Bannockburn, where Robert secured his most significant military victory, is particularly emblematic of this enduring legacy. Annual reenactments and a visitor centre at the site serve not only as educational tools, but also as places of pilgrimage for those who view Robert's victory as a symbol of national pride and freedom. These commemorations are imbued with a sense of historical continuity, linking past and present in a celebration of Scottish heritage. Robert's impact extends beyond cultural commemorations. It also permeates the Scottish national psyche. His strategies and decisions during the wars of Scottish independence are often cited in discussions of political and military strategy, his name invoked in contexts that call for courage and leadership against overwhelming odds. In political discourse, particularly in conversations surrounding modern movements for Scottish independence, Robert the Bruce is frequently referenced as a historical exemplar of Scotland's ancient and ongoing quest for self-governance. Moreover, Robert the Bruce has become a figure of interest globally, symbolizing the universal struggle against oppression. His story has been popularized worldwide by films such as Braveheart, where he is portrayed as a complex character amid the simplifications and dramatizations typical of Hollywood narratives. While these portrayals sometimes stray from historical accuracy, they play a crucial role in amplifying his legend, making the details of his life and leadership accessible to a global audience and inspiring those who fight for their own causes and freedoms. The influence of Robert the Bruce is also evident in the arts, where his life and legacy have been a source of inspiration for poets, playwrights, and novelists. In literature, he is often depicted as a tragic hero, a figure moulded by the harsh realities of his time, but steadfast in his moral and ethical convictions. This portrayal resonates with readers who find in Robert a character who navigates the complexities of power and responsibility, making him relevant in any era. The legacy of Robert the Bruce as a leader and as a symbol continues to thrive, enriched by each generation that revisits and reinterprets his story. In Scotland and beyond, he remains a potent emblem of struggle and victory, a bridge between past and present, and a beacon for those who value freedom and fight against subjugation. His tale, steeped in the mists of time, yet alive, with lessons for today, ensures that the Lion of Scotland continues to roar across centuries, calling to those who cherish liberty and justice. As the final chapter of Robert the Bruce's epic narrative draws to a close, it is clear that his impact stretches far beyond the medieval battlefields and political intrigues of his time. Robert the Bruce's strategic brilliance and charismatic leadership during the wars of Scottish independence are celebrated in countless tales and histories. But it is perhaps in the quieter moments, his reflective solitude in the face of adversity, his wise governance amid chaos, and his visionary policies, that his true greatness is revealed. Under his rule, Scotland flourished, not merely as a kingdom free from English dominion, but as a society that valued justice, law, and culture. The Declaration of Arbroath, crafted under his aegis in 1320, remains one of the most significant documents in Scottish history. Its assertion that the authority of the king is derived from the will of the governed was revolutionary, predating by centuries similar ideas expressed in the American Declaration of Independence. This document, a bold statement of national sovereignty, continues to inspire those who value freedom and self-determination, echoing Robert's enduring influence. Beyond the borders of Scotland, Robert the Bruce's legacy as a freedom fighter has resonated with various movements for independence and justice around the world. His determination and strategic acumen are studied by historians and military scholars, his life serving as an example of leadership in the face of overwhelming odds. The echo of Robert the Bruce's legacy is also a reminder of the power of legacy itself. In closing, the lion's roar of Robert the Bruce's legacy is as powerful today as it was over 7 centuries ago. It is a call to valor and integrity, a beacon for those who lead, and a reminder of the enduring impact of one man's courage on the history of a nation. As long as stories of freedom and struggle are told, the name Robert the Bruce will be spoken with reverence, a legendary king whose roar transcends the annals of history, resounding through the ages as a symbol of the quest for liberty and justice. Thank you for joining us on this enchanting journey through medieval history. While our weekly episodes will continue to captivate your imagination, there's an exclusive treasure trove for subscribers, a secret vault of bonus episodes filled with extra tales and deep dives into the subjects we cover. Your curiosity fuels our mission, and we're truly thankful for your support. Until we meet again among stone walls and towering turrets, keep that torch of curiosity burning bright. Thank you for listening.